Today is the 6th time Joanna is meeting my parents, but she has stood me up every single time. My parents and I have been waiting at the restaurant for a full 4 hours, and during that time, I called her countless times, but no one answered. Just as I was about to make one last call, Joanna's childhood friend Charles posted a tweet with a location at a suburban hotel. We're going to walk from 18 to 80. The picture showed a woman's snow-white back, with a seductive blossom of a red spider lily at her exposed shoulder. One mutual friend teasingly commented, "The first love couple is even better." I silently liked the post and commented, "Remember to be buried together after death, and never come back to ruin people in the next life." Chapter 1. Just after the meal was served, Joanna's call came through, and I hung up without hesitation. But the next second, she sent me a message. "Can you stop being so paranoid? I grew up with him, and so what if we'll be together until we're 80? People like you, with such a dirty mind, are the ones who think everything is dirty. Besides, Charles had some issues here, and I came to help him. Who knew a sudden downpour would happen? He's not in good health, and I was worried something might happen to him, so I booked a room to wait out the rain." I continued receiving similar messages from her. The one thing she didn't mention was the dinner I had promised to attend with my parents. I stopped looking at her messages and just felt guilty toward my parents. I looked up at them, guilt filling my heart. They were getting older, yet they flew all the way here just to meet my girlfriend. But Joanna hadn't shown up even once. My parents were getting upset because of her repeated no-shows, but I still liked her, and that was why they kept tolerating it. "Sorry, Mom and Dad. I made you come all the way here for nothing." My mom looked at me with concern, while my dad said calmly, "We won't comment on young people's affairs. You make your own decisions. We just came to see you." My eyes suddenly welled up with tears. In the 5 years I'd been with Joanna, she had never come with me to visit my parents. She was a well-known lawyer and always said her time was precious, that she charged by the minute. But whenever Charles called, she was willing to cross half the city to see him, even making time to travel with him. Love and indifference are really obvious. I just kept fooling myself. Sometimes, letting go only takes a single moment. After sending my parents to the hotel, I returned home at 11 p.m. Joanna was sitting on the couch, frowning. As soon as I entered, she snapped, "Coming back so late, where were you? You didn't answer your phone or reply to my texts." I patiently listened to her accusations before interrupting. "Do you remember what you were supposed to do today? What could I do today? Isn't it just work, or do you want?" Joanna stopped abruptly. "Sorry, did Mr. and Mrs. leave already? Tomorrow. I promise I won't forget," I said calmly. "No need." With that, I went straight to my room. After showering, I turned off the lights, pulled up the covers, and prepared to sleep when Joanna came in. She had already showered and was wearing a black spaghetti strap nightgown. As usual, she lay beside me. "Are you still mad at me?" I turned my back to her and didn't say a word. Joanna's arm wrapped around my waist, and she whispered gently in my ear, "Darling, I'm sorry. I was wrong this time. Charles had an accident and called me. I was just so worried that I forgot." Seeing I was still silent, she forcefully turned me toward her. In the moonlight, I saw the flower tattoo on her shoulder and thought of Charles's tweet, which made me feel disgusted. "What's the matter? Didn't Charles feed you well?" Joanna sat up abruptly, looking furious. "Jeremy, aren't you never ending? Didn't I explain it to you? Didn't I apologize? What else do you want? I even plan to take the day off tomorrow to spend time with your parents." I listened to her tone, which was full of condescension, and calmly looked at her. "Joanna, you don't need to force yourself. Let's break up." I said this, grabbed a pillow, and left the bedroom, heading for the guest room to sleep. Joanna froze for a few seconds before slamming the door in anger. The next day, as I was about to ask for leave to take my parents out, I received a message from my mom. "We're heading back now. You focus on your work, and come home whenever you can." I was taken aback and immediately called her. "Mom, why are you leaving so soon?" She replied softly, "Your dad's eager to get back and go fishing with your uncle." "All right, I need to go. Talk to you later." Hearing the line disconnect, I was filled with guilt toward my parents. My workplace was only about an hour's flight from my hometown, but over the years, I had been so focused on Joanna that I rarely went back to visit them. Then, a thought flashed through my mind, and I immediately got up to find my manager at the company. "Manager Song, I want to go to the Guangzhou branch." Manager Song was surprised by my sudden enthusiasm. "Why the sudden interest? I've asked you before, but you kept turning it down. If you go, the branch project manager position is yours." I scratched my head and replied, "Manager Song, I've figured it out. Nothing is more important than making money." Manager Song smiled in satisfaction and took out a form for me to sign. After leaving his office, I received a call from Joanna. As soon as I answered, her frantic voice came through. "Jeremy, why didn't you wake me up? Why didn't you make breakfast? I have an important client to meet today." Hearing her self-righteous complaints, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Joanna, I'm not your maid. I'm not obligated to do everything you ask. Jeremy, you're really. I didn't want to hear any more of her voice and hung up immediately. For the past 5 years, I had pampered Joanna like a princess. I took care of all the meals, the housework, and even prepared her clothes for the shower. But over the years, she had come to take it all for granted. When I stopped, it became my fault. Thinking about this, I was incredibly relieved that I woke up early. After deciding to let go of Joanna, my work efficiency improved significantly. Tasks that used to take me all day could now be finished in half a day. After work, when I stepped outside, I realized it was raining. At that moment, I received a call from Joanna. You're off work, right? I didn't drive today. Come home and pick me and Charles up. Hearing her bossy tone, and the mention of Charles, I couldn't help but feel disgusted. I wondered just how desperate I must have been to agree to pick them up on a rainy day. I'm not available. With that, I hung up and took a cab home. Back at home, I ordered some spicy hot pot, a dish I hadn't had in a long time. I loved it, but Joanna always said it was dirty and unworthy of her status. She refused to eat it and didn't allow me to either. Yet, that day, I saw her on Charles's WeChat moments, wearing a black suit and sitting by the street eating the very hot pot she despised. It turned out her preferences depended on the person. I just wasn't her exception. As I was enjoying my meal with beer, Joanna came back with Charles. When she walked in and saw how relaxed and comfortable I was, while they were drenched and miserable, she couldn't hold back her fury. Jeremy, is this what you call no time? Isn't it just not seeing your parents? Are they never going to have time again? Do you really have to make such a fuss? Chapter 2. I didn't want to argue with Joanna, but the things she was saying kept getting more and more outrageous. I couldn't take it anymore. I suddenly stood up and smashed the beer bottle I was holding onto the floor. That's enough, Joanna. Don't go too far. The glass from the bottle splashed onto Charles, making Joanna even angrier. She reached out and shoved me to the ground. Ugh. Blood instantly covered my palm, and I couldn't tell how many cuts I had on my hand. When Joanna saw that I was hurt, she seemed flustered and rushed over to check my wounds. The moment she got close, I smelled a strong fragrance. It was the scent of the perfume that Charles always used. I could almost imagine her hand running over Charles's body, her face full of gentleness. Disgusted, I shoved Joanna away, and my gaze landed on the red marks on her neck. Joanna noticed my gaze and nervously tried to cover them with her hand. The company's been full of mosquitoes lately. You know my skin is delicate. Charles shot me a smug look and chimed in. Yeah, Miss Joanna's skin is so smooth. In this relationship, Charles received Joanna's real love, and all I got was one betrayal after another. Enough. Stop fussing over these little things. I'll take you to the hospital. She looked at my injured hand with a pained expression, but her actions showed no sign of sympathy. She grabbed my wounded hand and roughly pulled me up from the ground, pretending to be a caring girlfriend, insisting on taking me to the hospital. I shook her off and said calmly, no need. If you keep dragging me like this, I'll die before we even get to the hospital. Joanna then realized she was holding onto my injured hand, but still stubbornly said, can't you talk like a normal person? Why do you always have to speak sarcastically? I couldn't be bothered to argue with her and was about to put on my shoes to go to the hospital on my own. But Joanna wouldn't let me off so easily. She insisted on taking me, dragging me all the way to the car. When we got there, Charles had already jumped into the passenger seat and was looking at me provocatively. I get car sick, so I need to sit in the passenger seat. Jeremy, you don't mind, right? I ignored him and opened the back door, getting in without a word. On the way to the hospital, I looked around the car and noticed a few things that irritated me. For example, the couple photo in front of the passenger seat, the basketball shoes in the back, the men's jacket, and so on. When Joanna and I first started dating, I casually left a figurine in her car, and the next day, she threw it in the trash. She said she had OCD and couldn't let anyone else's stuff be in her car. Turns out, her so-called principles were just double standards. Even her OCD was selective. When we got to the hospital and the doctor had finished treating my wounds and bandaging me, it was already 2 a.m. I walked around the waiting area, but couldn't find Joanna. I didn't bother calling her. I just stood outside the hospital, trying to hail a cab. It was the middle of the night and raining, so I waited for an hour but still couldn't get a ride. I helplessly called Joanna. Charles answered. After a brief hello, the phone was taken away by Joanna. Charles clicked his tongue and said, I'm going to take a shower. Hurry up. Joanna seemed to walk a bit further away, then asked, what's up? I didn't waste time and directly said, I'm outside the hospital. Can you come pick me up? I can't get a cab. Joanna paused for a moment, as if she had just remembered she was the one who had brought me to the hospital. Wait for me. I'll be there in 5 minutes. But 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20, and she still hadn't arrived. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at myself. I knew I shouldn't have trusted her. I tried hailing a cab again, And maybe fate was finally feeling sorry for me because I got one in no time. When I got home and sat down, Joanna came in soon after. She walked in and immediately started questioning me. Why didn't you wait for me? I'm hungry. Make me something to eat. Make more seafood porridge. Charles wants some. I'll take it to him later. Hey, are you deaf? I had been awake all night, and with the rain soaking me, I felt dizzy and completely drained of patience. Are you crazy? We've already broken up, and you're still giving orders? Joanna stared at me in disbelief. What did you say? You want to break up with me? Yeah, I told you yesterday. Didn't you hear me? Joanna laughed as if she'd heard the funniest joke, tears even forming in her eyes. Jeremy, am I hearing this right? You want to break up with me? You'll spend a few days, no, just a few hours trying to beg me back, right? I hope you can be tough and last 24 hours. I looked at Joanna calmly, not surprised by her reaction. Because of Charles, I had tried breaking up with Joanna several times before, but after just a few hours, I would shamefully go back to apologize and beg for reconciliation. Joanna didn't say another word. She walked straight into the bedroom and slammed the door. I took out my phone and started looking for short-term rentals near the company. Manager Song had notified me before work today that the transfer order would be coming tomorrow, but the official move wouldn't happen until the branch office sent out their notice, which would take about a month. I thought it would be quick, but now I realized I'd have to wait a month. While searching for rental places, I thought about what I should pack to leave. Since moving in with Joanna, I had treated this place like home and added many things. There were a lot of things I couldn't take with me. After thinking for a while, I decided to just take my personal belongings. After all, I wouldn't be living in this city anymore, and those things wouldn't matter. I had an appointment with the realtor to view a place in the afternoon, so I went to the guest room to rest. Chapter 3. When I woke up and came out of the guest room, Joanna was staring at me with a look I couldn't understand. I didn't ask her anything. I just glanced at the time and went straight to freshen up. Suddenly, she threw the cup she was holding onto the floor. Hearing the sound, I turned around and looked at the shattered pieces of the cup, then smiled in relief. That cup was the first piece I made when I became obsessed with ceramics. When I gave it to Joanna, she laughed for a long time, saying that it was so ugly. It was one of a kind in the world. I had seriously told her back then, just like my love for you, one of a kind. Now that the cup was broken, it seemed like my relationship with her should end too. I didn't care about the shattered pieces. After finishing up, I put on my shoes and left the house. Joanna was sitting in the living room, staring at my back as I left, still in a daze. In the afternoon, I viewed a few places and quickly settled on one, a fully furnished one-bedroom apartment. And most importantly, it was only a 5-minute walk to my office. The previous place I had picked was for Joanna's convenience since it was closer to her work. For me, even if there was no traffic, it still took half an hour to get there. Back then, I was focused only on giving, but I never imagined this would be the outcome. I quickly paid the rent and deposit, planning to move in tonight. The feeling of freedom and comfort was already calling to me. When I returned home, Joanna wasn't there. I packed all my things into a large suitcase and left. By the time I had settled into the new place and got everything tidied up, it was already evening. Although I was exhausted, I felt happy, but that happiness didn't last long. As Joanna's call came through, I glanced at the time and already knew the reason for her call. She probably wanted me to make her some hangover tea or prepare bathwater. But this time, she wouldn't get that treatment. When I answered, Joanna's surprised tone came through the receiver. Jeremy, you moved out. I was a little surprised. Why was she back so soon today? Did she have a bad time? Maybe seeing that I didn't answer, she called my name again, this time with a slight panic in her voice. Perhaps I misheard her. Yeah, we broke up. Living together isn't working. Did I agree to break up? You come back right now. Where are you? I'll pick you up. No need, Joanna. I'm serious this time, I said calmly. Joanna panicked. Fine, Jeremy, don't regret this. Then she hung up. Regret? The only thing I'd regret is not breaking up sooner. Now, I can eat durian whenever I want, or stinky tofu, without caring about anyone else's opinions. I don't have to prepare 3 meals a day, and the extra time can be used to improve myself because I realized I was starting to fall behind my colleagues at work. Since being with Joanna, I had wasted so much time, and now I had to catch up. So I immediately enrolled in an online course. The first week after leaving Joanna, I lived freely and fulfilled. Just when I thought it was all over, I received a call from Joanna's friend. Joanna's drunk. She's yelling for you to come pick her up. I was stunned. You must have dialed the wrong number. You should call Charles. If you don't have his number, I can send it to you. Her friend seemed taken aback by my response and was silent for a long while before trying to persuade me. You've been together for so long. Don't make such a big deal out of it. Otherwise, you'll regret it later. I yawned and interrupted her. Is there anything else? If not, I'm hanging up. As soon as I hung up, I heard Joanna yelling from the other room. It suddenly reminded me of when Charles had just returned from abroad. Joanna used to go out drinking with her friends until the early hours every night, and I couldn't sleep, worrying she might get into trouble. One day, I called her to ask if she needed me to pick her up. Joanna scoffed and said, "What are you coming for? Are you going to embarrass me? You can't drink. You can't handle it." After that, I never mentioned picking her up again. I thought about it for a moment, but it seemed so pointless. Without hesitation, I hung up the phone, turned off the lights, and went to sleep. Chapter 4. The next morning, when I woke up, my phone had over a dozen missed calls and unread messages, all from Joanna. "Jeremy, come back tomorrow, and we can pretend nothing happened. Who do you think you are? You rejected the chance to come pick me up. Where did you learn this new trick of playing hard to get? You're not even worth a finger of Charles's. If it wasn't for you and Charles competing for the same spot to study abroad, I would never have been with you." I froze when I saw that message. The puzzle that had been bothering me for so long was finally solved. In my senior year, Joanna suddenly added me on WeChat and asked if I wanted to be together. Although I didn't quite understand why, I agreed without hesitation. Back then, almost everyone at school knew that I liked her. From falling in love at first sight in my sophomore year to officially getting together in our senior year, many of our classmates said they believed in love again. After getting together with Joanna, she told me she didn't like long-distance relationships. As a love-struck fool, I gave up the opportunity to study abroad, even angering my professor. I swore to my professor that I was going to pursue happiness. Joanna was always lukewarm toward me. At the time, I thought she was so cool. Little did I know, I would suffer so much because of that coolness. After graduation, I gave up a job opportunity back home to stay here for Joanna, thinking we would be the perfect example of from school uniforms to wedding gowns. But I was slapped in the face instead. Later on, I asked her many times why she suddenly got together with me. Her answer was always that it was because I was a fool. I thought it was a compliment, but it turned out it was just the truth. I was a fool. I don't regret everything I gave up for Joanna because I loved her earnestly and passionately. Thinking of this, I smiled bitterly and shook my head. For Charles, Joanna could really give up everything, even herself. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Joanna. I hesitated for a second but still answered. A weak voice came through the receiver. "Jeremy, my stomach hurts. Jeremy, my stomach hurts. Come back. My stomach hurts. Come give me a massage. I want sweet porridge. If you're not here, no one will make me hangover soup. No one will." Impatiently, I interrupted her. "Joanna, I'm not your nanny. If your stomach hurts, go see a doctor. If you want hangover soup, make it yourself. I'm not that desperate to give you another chance to hurt me after knowing the truth. Let's just end it here. We don't need to stay in touch." I hung up the phone and got out of bed to get ready for work. Almost late. If I was late, I'd lose my full attendance bonus. It turns out there's nothing good that comes from dealing with Joanna, and luckily, I woke up in time. Because I was preparing to transfer to another branch, I spent the whole morning working on handover documents. During lunch break, I finally had a chance to check my phone. After I hung up, Joanna sent me a bunch of messages. I hadn't even looked at them yet when a new one came in. It was a picture of her lunch, followed by, "The rice is so hard, not as good as when you made it." I didn't reply. I swiped up, and there it was, 3 words, "I'm sorry." I was a little surprised. Joanna was a very proud person. She rarely thought she was wrong. Even if she was wrong, she would always shift the blame onto me. After going through her repeated manipulation, there was a time when I lost myself, thinking I couldn't do anything right, and I was lucky that Joanna didn't mind. It wasn't until my mom noticed something was wrong, flew over from home, and comforted me that I finally broke free from the cycle. I had barely crawled out of the quagmire that was Joanna. How could I possibly fall in the same place again? At the end of the day, I unexpectedly saw Joanna standing outside the company entrance. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to pretend I didn't see her and walked around her to go buy groceries for the day. Joanna called my name and chased after me. "Jeremy, I'm here to take you home." Feeling the eyes of my colleagues on us, I had to stop. "Joanna, what do you want? We've broken up." She looked hurt. "Jeremy, I don't agree to break up. Come back with me." I looked at her in confusion and asked, "I can't even be a threat to Charles anymore. What are you doing? What's left for you to gain from me?" Joanna's face instantly turned pale. "No, Jeremy, that was just the nonsense I said when I was drunk. Even though I got together with you because of Charles, after spending time with you, I realized I've already fallen for you. Really, Jeremy, I can't." Before she could finish, Charles's ringtone sounded. She hesitated for a few seconds before finally answering the call. The moment Joanna picked up the phone, I immediately turned and left. No matter the time or place, Charles would always be her priority. I should have understood this long ago. Chapter 5. In the following days, Joanna didn't appear in front of me again. After I completed my work handover, I decided to take some time off and go on a trip. After thinking for a while, I chose to go to the place I had originally planned to travel to with Joanna after graduation, Beijing. At the time, I had done a lot of research, booked flights and hotels, but the night before we were supposed to leave, Joanna told me her friend had an emergency and she had to fly abroad. That plan was shelved until now. After I found a place to stay in Beijing, I visited many places. On the first day, I woke up early to watch the flag-raising ceremony and had some doji, fermented mung bean juice. I have to say, I really couldn't drink it. I also visited the snow-covered Forbidden City, the Great Wall in winter, the historic Summer Palace, and the Shikahai area at dusk. On the last day of my trip, I organized all the photos and posted a tweet. I said a proper goodbye to my youth. After returning to Shanghai, I began packing up my things and preparing to leave. At that moment, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found it was Joanna. She looked much more haggard than before. Her makeup and hair were less polished, and she wasn't even wearing lipstick. I looked at her in confusion. "What do you want?" Joanna stubbornly said. "Jeremy, I'm here to take you home." I rolled my eyes at her. "If there's nothing else, you can leave." With that, I started to close the door, but Joanna pressed her hand against the doorframe, stopping me from closing it. I kicked the door impatiently. "What exactly do you want?" "Jeremy, I know I was wrong. Give me another chance. I love you. I'll make it up to you. If you don't like Charles, I can keep my distance from him. Is that okay?" Joanna looked at me pitifully, her eyes full of pleading. I sneered. "Joanna, don't you think your actions are contradictory? You love me, and yet you've been hurting me for years. If you don't leave, I'll call security." Joanna still refused to leave. She stared at me, seemingly unable to believe I would be so heartless. "Joanna, we're done. Is it fun to keep clinging like this?" I ignored her hand and slammed the door shut. Just before the door closed completely, Joanna's hand quickly pulled back. I sat on the sofa, pondering Joanna's strange behavior. Why was she so fixated on getting me to come back? Her saying that she'd suddenly realized I was the one she truly loved, I could never believe that. After sighing, I decided to stop thinking about it. After all, it was impossible. At that moment, my childhood friend messaged me, saying he had arrived. I quickly got dressed and went out. The day after I returned from Beijing, my childhood friend Ryan called and asked me what my tweet meant. I told him everything, and he immediately said he'd come to Shanghai to have dinner and drinks with me. I didn't expect him to come that day. We chose a popular hot pot restaurant together. After having a few drinks, I went to the restroom. On my way back, I heard a voice that was incredibly familiar. If it wasn't for Charles being interested in the software I designed, I wouldn't have had to beg Jeremy. "Miss Joanna, you've been wronged. With that software, I can successfully get a job at Xingyue. I'll meet him on Saturday, and then you." The rest of the conversation was too quiet to hear clearly. The software they were talking about was something I had started developing in my second year after graduation, and it had only been completed recently. Saturday. I'm curious to see what tricks you two are up to. Chapter 6. On Saturday, Joanna stood at my door early in the morning, saying that even though there was no chance for us anymore, she wanted me to accompany her for the last day. I looked at her hypocritical appearance with cold eyes, a wave of disgust rising in my chest. But for the sake of my plan, I agreed after she begged for an hour. The moment I agreed, I didn't miss the brief gleam of triumph in her eyes. Not long after we left, my phone buzzed with a message. I glanced at it and couldn't help but curve my lips slightly. She took the bait. That day, Joanna took me to places we used to visit when we first got together. I kept watching her, thinking that if she felt even a little bit guilty, I'd let her go. But she didn't. In the afternoon, Joanna's phone buzzed again. Without even looking at it, she stood up and said, "Jeremy, thanks for spending the day with me. The law firm has some things for me to take care of. I need to head back." Without waiting for my reply, she quickly left. I didn't need to think to know that Charles had messaged her, saying he had succeeded. I slowly finished my coffee and then headed home, now just waiting to reel in the catch. 2 days later, a new software was released, and its designer, Charles, was hailed as a genius. Charles quickly used this new title to land a job as the development department manager at Xingyue. I watched his interview video on social media and sneered coldly. "Charles, you've had your laugh. Now the show's about to begin." I didn't warn him about the software. Instead, I went straight to court and filed a lawsuit, registering a personal account to send out a legal notice. Since it was a new account with few followers, I quickly bought traffic. Soon, the so-called genius designer was embroiled in a plagiarism scandal. People began talking. Some doubted my claims and questioned me. I wasn't afraid. I revealed the developer signature hidden in the software and posted the screen recording of Charles working on my computer that day, because I had been active on various software development forums. Many designers in the industry knew my alias. As a result, Charles became the talk of the town, labeled a thief, and was too scared to leave his house. As I cracked open a beer at home to celebrate, Joanna called me. She said, "Jeremy, please, can you issue a statement saying we've privately resolved this? He's hiding at home and won't come out. If this continues, something bad will happen." I sneered. "A rat in the gutter shouldn't show its face. Didn't you think about this outcome when you conspired to steal from me?" Joanna fell silent for a few seconds. "You know about this. Then why did you cooperate with me? And now you won't let go. What do you think it'll do for you if something happens? When you two stole my software, did you think about the consequences it would have on me? Stealing your software was my mistake. Tell me what compensation you want. I'll agree to it." When she said this, I let out a sigh of relief. Thankfully, I had been foresight and had already pressed record when she called. Everything she said was recorded. I didn't say anything more and hung up the phone. Realizing I wouldn't let Charles off, Joanna started buying traffic and hired trolls to manipulate the narrative online. She desperately tried to clear his name, but a thief is still a thief. No matter how much they try to cover it up, the truth remains, and the facts can't be changed. As netizens dug deeper, Charles's social media accounts were exposed. He had previously shared a lot about his relationship with Joanna, including intimate photos they took at hotels and at home. The earliest posts dated back to when Charles was studying abroad. He had a considerable following, many of whom were fans of their relationship. Now, due to this incident, all the comments on his posts had completely changed. Seeing things spiral out of control, Joanna began to turn the blame on me, accusing me of being the third party in their relationship. At this point, I fought back, posting a timeline of our relationship, along with the drunken message she had sent me and the recording of her last phone call. In an instant, not only did Charles's reputation take a hit, but Joanna was also dragged down. She was branded as a scumbag, her work as a lawyer was suspended, and even her previous cases were being scrutinized. As this investigation unfolded, a shocking discovery came to light. On the day Joanna and I had met our parents for the 6th time, Charles had been pushed down a flight of stairs. Joanna was the acting lawyer for the case. Since there were no cameras nearby and no substantial evidence, she used her years of experience to sue the victim for 150,000 yuan in damages. However, during this incident, someone released a video captured by a passerby near the crime scene. It showed that Charles had tried to push the victim down the stairs during an argument, but he lost his balance and fell instead. Joanna was dragged into a storm of online harassment, and her lawyer's license was revoked. Chapter 7. After this battle, I packed my things and moved to Guangzhou for work, returning to the embrace of my family, and also blocked all contact with Joanna. A week later, I received a strange phone call. "Jeremy, where have you gone? I went to your place, and the landlord said you moved out." "Jeremy, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I was deceived by Charles, and that's why I did all of this." Joanna's voice was filled with regret and sorrow. "You have the wrong number," I replied. With that, I hung up the phone and set it to reject any unknown calls. I wasn't giving Joanna any more chances to disgust me. Since transferring to the branch office, I often worked late into the night. One night, after work, it was already past midnight. I was walking home alone when suddenly a small car sped toward me, aiming straight at me. In that moment of life and death, I froze, too scared to move. Just as the car was about to hit me, someone grabbed me from behind and yanked me out of the way. The car didn't slow down and quickly disappeared into the darkness. The person who saved me acted as a witness and accompanied me to the police station to file a report and give a statement. After my parents found out, they started driving me to and from work every day. In less than a week, the driver was caught. It was Charles. He hated me for ruining his future, for making him a pariah in the streets, and for facing charges of stealing others' work and extortion. As for Joanna, I had no idea what was wrong with her, but every day she tried to find me, saying she loved only me and didn't care about Charles at all. After losing everything, Charles became mentally unstable and wanted to drag me down with him. Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel a little rueful. Greed harms people, but their problems had nothing to do with me anymore. 6 months later, my mom tricked me into going on a blind date. When I arrived, I discovered it was the girl who had saved me that day, Rebecca. It turned out she was the girlfriend of one of my mom's friends, and she was a taekwondo instructor. Rebecca was an outgoing girl, and I felt very comfortable being around her. On our second meeting, she asked me, "Jeremy, can I be your girlfriend?" I fled in a panic, and she chased me relentlessly. A year later, Rebecca officially visited my parents as my girlfriend. She stood downstairs in front of my house, asking for the 10th time if she had brought all the gifts and fruits, wondering if she was dressed appropriately. I smiled and said, "With you having saved my life before, even if you didn't bring anything to my house, my parents would still like you." To my surprise, she looked at me seriously and said, "Jeremy, that's a different matter. You can't take meeting parents casually." Hearing this, I smiled contentedly. My happiness had finally arrived.